Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. Today's episode is a coaching episode with Jessica. And Jessica has 2 daughters who are 6 and 8, and she was just having a lot of conflict, especially with her younger daughter who's very strong-willed. And this is a really interesting coaching series because what we really ended up finding out was that a lot of Jessica's struggles, I mean, obviously it's hard when you have a strong-willed kid, but a lot of it was her own anxiety and how that shows up in parenting. I think you're going to learn a lot from this episode. I think anxiety shows up more than we realize that it does if we don't identify as classically anxious. A lot of us fall into the, fortune-telling mode where we think we know what's going to happen in the future. And I see that over and over again with my clients that can really get in the way. If you would like to come on the podcast and be coached by me, shoot me an email, sarah@sarah.rosensweet.com, or DM me on Facebook or Instagram and let me know that you're interested and we can take it from there. I am looking for a couple of people over the next few months who would like to have some free parent coaching in exchange for being on the podcast. And not only does it help you, but as a podcast listener, you know that listening to other parents and their struggles and what works for them and doesn't work for them also helps you. So you will not only get help for yourself, but you'll be helping other people. Okay, let's meet Jessica. Hello, everyone. We have a little bit of an unusual coaching podcast episode today because Jessica, who's our coaching guest today, our parent coaching guest, and I have already talked. We did an hour session about 6 weeks ago, Jessica, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And Jessica reached out to me after that and said that was so helpful and I would really like to come on the podcast to continue some of this work. So that's what we're doing. Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, let's just get everybody on the same page here. Tell us a little bit about what you came to talk about, what we talked about 6 weeks ago, what your challenges were and sort of what the plan we came up with. Just give us a little summary of that
Sure.
hour and then how things have been since then.
Yeah, sure. So I reached out to you in a time of what I would say almost crisis where, we had just been, I have 2 daughters, first of all, and 8 years old. And our 6-year-old has experienced a lot of issues around clothing, and she has explosive meltdowns sometimes. So we were in a phase of explosive meltdowns and mornings that were just becoming very stressful. I was on edge every morning, wondering what was going to happen. And there were several times where I had to carry her out to the bus or the car crying and screaming because, we couldn't miss the bus. And so, I reached out to you for some help. And one of the things that we had discovered is that a lot of this was really surrounding my own anxiety about being late. And I knew that I had these feelings because, they're present with me all the time in work and social life. I just don't like being late. And it's I get a visceral reaction. And because we were having some struggles in the morning, I was passing that tension and anxiety off to my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just elevating their anxiety and creating really the whole mess.
Yeah.
So
I think I'll just point out through our conversation, we were able to pinpoint other areas that where anxiety showed up in your life, worrying that something might happen to your daughters if you left them with your husband, and just some different things that we were kind of both like, oh, here's that anxiety again. And the thing with anxiety is that people can get very good at coping. Like people who are anxious sometimes just come up with these coping strategies and they don't even realize that they're doing anxious coping strategies because their life is going, it's not like they're paralyzed sitting at home and can't do anything. Like their life is going on pretty well. And I think that was you, like you're like a really bright person and you like had figured out these coping strategies. So you almost hadn't even realized how anxious you were until we started uncovering some of these patterns that were showing up in your parenting.
Yeah. And I had gone to therapy for my anxiety. And so it's gotten so much better since my girls were born. Like it really exploded when my first was born. And it was like, I'm pretty sure I had I'm blanking on the word.
Mood disorder, PPMD, which is sometimes anxiety and sometimes depression or both.
Yeah, it was definitely anxiety for me. And I remember you saying that a lot of kids who have anxiety can manage until they have kids, until they grow up and have kids. And that's when it comes to a head. And that's I feel like what happened with me. So I felt like over the last few years that I've been coping pretty well with my anxiety because I was doing, feeling better about it than before. But so that was a really big light bulb moment for me, Sarah, when you were saying, like, I think you would ask me, what happens if you're late for the bus? And my answer was kind of shocking to you because I said, well, if I'm late for the bus, then, that means tomorrow she's going to want me to just take her to school and then I'm going to be late for work. And then how am I supposed to hold down a job?
Yeah.
And it was this catastrophic thinking.
Yeah. You were ending up like your whole family living in a van down by the river.
It's ready to get her on the bike. Yeah. And you said to me, okay, so like you've obviously had driven her to school for being late before. And you said, so what happened the next day? Did she ask for a drive? And I said, no. So it was just a really big light bulb moment. And since then, I've really been a lot more calm in the morning.
Great.
Because I have that conversation playing in my head, like this is just one day. And I've also realized that we're always the first ones at the back. I have more time than I think. So when I have like an hour before we need to leave, that's when I used to start to amp up. And now I'm like, an hour is so much time. So it's really helped. This morning was really close to me feeling like overwhelmed with anxiety because we were really close. But I managed to joke around a bit with them. I didn't yell. So those strategies have really helped me.
Great. Well, and I think just to back up a little bit, when we talked about how your anxiety was making the mornings more difficult, that's because of the process of co-regulation or the lack thereof, right? Like, so our nervous systems, and I know you know this because we talked about it, but for people who are listening, our nervous systems are always communicating with other people's nervous systems. And if you are feeling anxious and caught up in your own fight, flight, or freeze, then your kids are going to be, their nervous systems are going to be picking up on that. And kids experience rushing as stress in general, but if their parent is really feeling stressed, then that's going to make them stressed. And I love this analogy. Somebody, I forget who shared this with me, but they said, like, if you're on an airplane and there's some turbulence and the flight attendant is just calmly serving the drinks and the coffee and has a smile on their face and it's not a big deal, you're going to be like, oh, this isn't a big deal. But if you see the flight attendant run to their seat and do like a sign of the cross, then you feel really nervous, right?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like that. Like you have to be that calm flight attendant in the morning, going along with the smile on your face and serving coffee so that your kids are like, our nervous systems can relax in this steady, strong leadership of our mom.
Yes. Yeah. And I was definitely having a hard time with that. And I think I would try to fool myself that, outwardly they couldn't see it, but there's no way.
But that's the whole problem beauty, I don't know, of the nervous system is that it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside if what you're feeling on the inside is panic and terror.
Yeah.
Because the nervous system can pick up on that.
Absolutely. So yeah, your strategies have really helped calm my nervous system. Like they've actually helped change my outlook on it.
That's awesome. What have you told yourself in those moments? Like,
I've told myself this is just one day.
Yeah.
This isn't like the rest of my life if we're late today. And I've used that phrase, we'll get it done. It might be messy, but we'll get it done.
Nice.
Like I said, this morning was really challenging. I was on my own and I have these like inner voices still that are saying like, you need to be on time. So it was the closest we've been to missing the bus. And I think at one point I did say to my older daughter, like, come on, we got to go. Cause dilly-dallying around, looking for things to bring to school. And she said, you telling me to like hurry up is making me more distracted. And I said, you're right. I'm sorry. Like, we're good. You know,
So
it was
when you
good.
talk about the voices that are telling you like, oh, you're going to be late or you're going to miss the bus, we can't stop those from coming,
Yeah.
right? You can't control your thoughts. It's like that don't think of pink elephants thing. Of course, you're going to think of pink elephants. So, but what you can do is replace it with a more realistic or kinder thought. So were you able to remember that? And if not, what do you think you could say to yourself the next time you start to go down that road?
Yeah. I had a hard time remembering that when it got to the last few minutes this morning. Like it was a challenge. I think what I can say to myself is just like, there's still time, because I do tend to think even if there's 20 minutes before we go, my brain automatically goes to like, we're running out of time. We're running out of time.
Right.
And my husband is the opposite. He'll get the kids out of here like 3 minutes before the bus comes. I'm like, he's never going to make it. And he makes it every time.
So what do you say to yourself? Is this actually a mantra I used to use when I was,
Yeah.
remember I'd be like coming back from my peaceful dog walks, and as I would start to get close to my house, I'd start to think, oh my God, I have so much to do today. I have this and this and this, and start to like get myself really stressed and anxious.
Yeah.
And I started to consciously tell myself, you have enough time for everything.
Yes.
You have enough time for everything.
Yes.
So that really worked for me. Like, and it's true.
It's so true.
We always do get everything done that we need to
Yes.
do. Yeah. You know, like it
Absolutely.
might not be pretty, but we managed to get done at least the most important things. So maybe you
Yes.
could tell yourself there's enough time to get ready and get to the bus. It seems like that's what your husband tells himself.
Yeah. He doesn't think about these things because he doesn't have the same brain as me. But I think that is exactly what I need to say to myself. Yeah. But it's been night and day.
And then you could add in, and even if there's not, we'll manage.
Okay.
We'll be able to handle it if we miss the bus. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe you should challenge yourself to, miss the bus someday. Just to know that you can do it, because has it ever happened?
We have missed the bus a couple times. Yeah.
Okay. And so remind yourself of those. Maybe I don't need to challenge you to miss the bus, but remind yourself, we've missed the bus before and it's turned out okay.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it's not going to create a pattern. I seem to be stuck on, I'm going to create a pattern. I'm going to create the expectation. Mm-hmm. Even around we talked a little bit about other things that had happened where I had said, I can't remember specifically, but I had said yes, or I'd said no, let's say, and then I changed my mind and said yes, because it became such a big battle and I didn't want to have it. And I felt, I was beating myself up about it because I'm not creating consistency, and you really made me feel better about like sometimes it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
But I just have this in my head that I have to be consistent every time.
You don't. You don't have to be consistent every time. No, I mean, what in life is consistent every single time?
Yeah.
Like there things happen, and that's actually being able to tolerate uncertainty is actually a way to, what's the word? Like protect yourself from being anxious. Like being able, that's a skill. That's one of Lynn Lyon's skills, where she talks about I can't remember what they all are, but like cultivating flexibility, promoting autonomy, and letting kids make decisions. And then also she talks about that being able to tolerate uncertainty. And the uncertainty is like, there may be days that we miss the bus and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. I think I struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, you'll keep working. It's a work in progress, right?
It is. But that part of our lives has gotten so much better.
Good. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you wanted to talk about some things so last time you did actually mention the meltdowns and the sensory stuff that we're going to talk about with little S, right?
Yes.
With little S, your 6-year-old. And we didn't get to talk about that because we went down the route of, wow, there's a lot of anxiety here. And what are we going to do? So let's pick up on some of those meltdowns. And you had mentioned that you were wondering if there were some sensory things going on. So why don't you just pick an example or two and tell me, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So she definitely still has a lot of sensory things around clothing. And I remembered the thing that we had talked about in the last coaching session, which was that she had a hole in her pants, in her crotch, and I didn't want her to wear them to school.
And
And in
meanwhile,
that
I'm
moment,
picturing this gigantic hole.
yeah,
And then at the end of the conversation, you showed me the size of the hole, and it was like the like a pencil eraser top
yeah,
hole, like the top of a pencil eraser.
yeah. And you were like, okay, well, could you have done this, or could you have put shorts over top? And in that moment, my brain was hijacked from creative thinking because I
Mhm.
just was like, the answer's no, you know?
Yeah, because when we're in our amygdala, we don't have access to our thinking brain, right? And the
Right.
thinking brain is where you would be like, well, the hole's really tiny, or she can have shorts, as you said, or even what you thought of afterwards on the call was I could have stitched it up.
Yes. A friend recommended that. And I just was like, oh, yeah, there are other options than just yes or no.
Hmm.
So those pants are gone now because the hole got too big and it was no problem. When the hole
Okay.
got too big, she decided for herself, I can't wear these
An
anymore.
Another piece of evidence that the anxiety sometimes takes over, right? That you were sure that she couldn't wear those pants, it was gonna be a giant problem.
Yes. Yeah. Very true. So now she has a new pair of pants, the same pair of pants, same pair of socks. And now she's changed from wearing just a regular long sleeve shirt to she will only wear her pajama top. So
Okay.
I'm fine with that. But on the weekend, we had my mother-in-law's special 85th birthday. And we were all going there. There's like 25 of us. And she was going to wear the pajama top and the pants and the socks. And I said, like, you can't wear the pajama top to grandma's 85th birthday. This is like a special occasion. We have to show that we're like, you know, I don't know how I worded it, but it's a special occasion. You get dressed up, you show that you care, kind of.
Right, this is a social norm.
Yes.
Mhm.
He's like, nope, I'm wearing my shirt. And I just said, you can't wear the shirt. Let's pick out something else. Long story short, she wouldn't do it. So I grabbed a sweater and I put it in the car thinking maybe she'll change her mind. She ran out of the house into the truck, so I couldn't even get her. My husband said, you can't wear the shirt. You're going to put on the sweater when we get there. She's refusing. And she's very strong-willed and firm
Okay,
in her
so just
refusals.
let me just chime in there.
Yeah.
Part of the problem could have been the language around
Yeah.
you can't, you have to, because so when humans are given orders,
Yes.
strong-willed humans, all humans, but strong-willed humans especially object to this, their choices are obey or resist, right?
Yeah.
For a strong-willed kid, obey feels terrible. And
Right.
resist is the only option when you've been given an order, right?
Yes.
So she may not have objected. I mean, I want to hear the rest of the story, but I also wonder if it could have been different already if there had been a conversation about, like, I had something similar happen with my son, my middle son. Let's see, how old was he? 9? And my sister was getting married, and he really didn't want to wear the uncomfortable, shiny black dress shoes. He wanted to wear sneakers. It was really important to my sister that he
Yeah.
have the whole dressed up outfit on.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, I'm not going to make you wear those shoes. However, it's really important to your auntie for you to wear those shoes. And he was like, okay. So just
Yeah.
strong-willed kids need to understand the why of stuff. And just, you can't wear that to your grandma's birthday party may not have been enough of a helping her understand the situation.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And I think, again, in that moment, I was predicting what was going to happen and my anxiety about a big blow up.
That is
And
such
us
a good
being
word to
late.
use. That's such a good word to use because what the amygdala is like a predictor machine based on past, like, to keep us safe. It's the amygdala makes predictions of what's going to happen based on past experiences to, set off that fight, flight, or freeze to keep you safe. So that was a perfect word to use, that you were predicting from your amygdala, from your fear zone, what was going to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here we are. We're going to be late.
Then you got to add in another layer of anxiety about being
Yes.
late. Okay, so what happened?
So what happened is that we just stopped talking about it because I just was like, we're here. She's in a good mood. At the end of the day, does this really matter? And I just decided today it doesn't matter.
Good for you.
Yeah. And
Did anyone say anything or give you the side eye?
no. And I think at the end of the day, my relationship with little S is more important than, what other people think. I did make a comment when she wasn't anywhere close by. Someone had made a comment about something that their other child was wearing. And I said, well, look at my child. Her hair hasn't been brushed and she's wearing her pajama top.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yeah, whatever. Like they were in agreement.
It's
But
such
I
a
do
good lesson to remember. Sorry for interrupting you, but it's such a good lesson
no.
to remember that people generally don't care as much as we worry they're going to care.
Yeah.
And
I
I'm
think,
sure your mother-in-law was just thrilled to have everyone there, even if little S was wearing her pajama top. And I'm sure she looked
yes.
cute, even if she was wearing her pajama top.
Yes. I guess I just think like, I feel like that's showing a sign of, respect and celebration to get ready for an event and to put effort into it, I guess, more than anything, to put effort into it. And I know she's little still,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm worried, is she gonna grow out of this?
So this is another catastrophizing thought that you're having. You
Oh,
don't need
right.
to, yeah, you don't need to worry about that right now because she's still
Right.
6. And this is the thing. It's so funny. This is the 3rd time today I've talked about 6-year-olds. 6-year-olds are so much more immature than we realize, than we remember, because
Yeah.
they have so much maturity in some ways, and they can talk to you about the eclipse that's coming, and all these things that seem really mature, but they're
Yeah.
really still so lacking in emotional maturity, in perspective, in logic, in reason, in a lot of ways. So this is the thing, when she's 6, let's just say 16, and maybe she still only likes to wear like really soft things. I mean, who knows, even if that a lot of people grow out of their sensory stuff as they get older. Some people don't. I'm not saying you always do, but it might
Yeah.
not even be an issue. But let's say it still is an issue.
Yeah.
She'll at that point be able to use her thinking brain to think, I really want to make a good impression. It's worth it to me to be uncomfortable for a few hours so that my grandma knows that I wanted to dress up for her party. Like those things
Yeah.
take maturity and perspective that she just doesn't have now.
Yes.
So it's really like way too big of a leap to think because it wasn't important to her at 6 is never going to be important to her.
Yeah. And my rational brain knows that. It's just in the moment, it's hijacked by these catastrophic thoughts.
It sounds like you need something that you can give yourself a reset in the moment.
Yeah.
Like when you find, maybe the cue is not going to be like, if I'm finding that I'm anxious, because I don't know if we realize it as much in the moment, but maybe if you think I'm finding myself in a power struggle, that's a lot easier to identify without having a lot of insight. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like anxiety, recognizing that you're anxious is going to take more insight, but recognizing you're in a power struggle should be a little bit easier. So
Yep.
maybe you write a little card to yourself, like an index card, like power
Yep.
struggle, my power struggle 911. And on that you can write, like, is there something I'm anxious about in this power struggle?
Yes.
And like, what's my anxiety about in this power struggle? And just try to recognize like, okay, I need a reset, because what I'm worried is that she's never going to dress up for her grandmother's birthday party, ever. And she's going to turn out to be a inconsiderate human being who doesn't care about other people.
Right. I think a lot of it is projecting my feelings about my childhood around this too. Like it was really important to be dolled up and like look for very important for those kinds of things. And so I don't want my kids to feel like that, not the biggest thing, but that's important.
Right.
Inside, and how you treat people and how you think about yourself is more important. So it's like this delicate balance for me between, I want you to look, presentable, but I also don't want to pass on the
anxiety about what other people will think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also something that I, think in my head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think too, Sarah, like when you said the way I could have presented it better, just even hearing you say that, I'm like, yeah, duh. Why didn't I think about this beforehand? I think I could have thought about this party coming up and said, okay, little S is going to probably not want to wear something other than what she wears every day. So maybe I'll have a talk with her about it. Like, okay, we've got, grandma's party coming up. What are you thinking that you might want to wear?
I love that.
Yeah. And it's so simple after talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be a little more proactive.
And maybe you could have even gone to like Goodwill or something and found something soft that was pretty and that would have been a little bit more festive. Like
Yeah.
maybe you didn't have the thing that she would have not objected to, but maybe you could have
Yeah.
found something soft and comfortable and cozy that was a little fancier, and it would have been a fun outing too to go
Yeah.
and try to find something. I have
Yeah.
to say, as a sidebar, taking kids to thrift stores to choose clothes is totally underrated. I don't know how many people do that, but it's like the best, like letting them choose their own things and like find their own
Yeah.
style. It's a lot of fun.
I haven't actually taken the girl with me to do that. My sister and my mom take them like every September new school clothes shopping, and they love it. And I do thrift shop, but I've only done it like by myself.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's a great idea because they
yeah,
would feel so excited.
yeah. It's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so you're thinking you need to be more proactive in thinking about possible problem situations and how you might present them to little s without a power struggle and an
Yes.
order. Because honestly, kids who are strong-willed, like I feel that at 53, I feel like if somebody orders me, like I'm even if I don't mind doing what they're ordering me to do, I can feel it in my nervous system. Like you can't tell me what to do,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
I have the wherewithal to be able to sort out my feelings about that. But it really does for some people who are strong-willed, it's like a nervous system reaction.
Yeah. And she's definitely strong-willed. So, and
Yeah, so just remember, don't set her up to either have to obey or resist.
yes. And I think by being proactive, I wouldn't have felt the time constraint. Like
Mhm.
had I done it on, last Tuesday night when she got home from school and we had the whole evening
Yeah.
talk about it or go get something, we would have
Yeah.
had the time. There wouldn't have been that stress.
And don't forget too what I was saying about helping them understand like the social norms. Like you could have looked online and looked at like pictures of people at parties and said like,
Right.
"Okay, now look at what everybody's wearing." And just invited her to learn, invited
Yes.
her to think about or looking at pictures from your family of, celebrations of what everyone was wearing and talk about the customs. One of our customs is that when we want to celebrate someone, we go through extra effort to make them feel special. And one
Okay.
of the ways we do that is through special food, decorating the room, giving them presents, wearing fancy clothes, right? And
Okay.
and really like just helping her understand the why.
Yes. Without the shame
Mhm.
of, like, I like the way you just put that because you were really focusing on all the positive
Hmm.
and all the other things that you do
Yeah.
at a
And then
party.
it might be like, what do you think we should bring for food to grandma's? Like if it was like
Right.
a potluck, right? Like what should
Yeah.
we make? Should we make her some cards? Okay, now what's everybody gonna wear?
Yeah.
And you kind of slip that one in. Like, what's everyone gonna wear?
Yes. And she goes and takes a dress,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
fancier,
Mhm.
and not a pajama top. Let's
Yeah.
start with that.
And then you know what? And even with all of that, if she still wears the pajama top, it's really okay.
Yeah.
I had some clients they had a 4-year-old who loved to wear these Spider-Man pajamas, and they were worried about going to some religious services that their whole extended family was gonna be at. And we went through a very similar talk to what I just gave you, and they had this plan of, how they were gonna help this child not wear their Spider-Man pajamas. And then when I talked to them next, I said, "What happened?" And they said, "They wore their Spider-Man pajamas. It didn't work." But you know what? It was totally fine. Like, the
Yeah.
parents were so worried about it. Nobody said anything. They got maybe a little bit of a side eye, but still, like, their loyalty to their child being comfortable was more important than wearing fancy clothes.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember going to overnight camp, and I would have been about 7, I believe, and I had this sweater vest that I loved. It was pastel colors, and I wore it all week. And then the last day of camp, my counselors were like, "Okay, it's time for the banquet. Everyone get dressed." And I'm like, "I'm ready." And they were like, "Jess, you can't wear that." And I remember it clear as day. "Oh, yes, I can. And I'm going to because it's my favorite thing." And it was so dirty. And they tried so hard, and I was like, "Nope."
Oh my gosh, so you have, like, total personal experience with
Oh,
this
yeah.
also.
Yeah.
The apple doesn't
No,
fall far from the tree, I guess.
no, no.
Okay, so those all sound like very good plans for when you're getting in a power struggle
Yeah.
that is worsened by your anxiety and fear. Make that little card for yourself, your power struggle
Yes.
911, and see if you can get to what the root is on your end, right? And then also being proactive, whatever things are happening, helping her understand the why, of avoiding that you must obey or resist language. Okay, so what other things that you were wondering about getting support?
Yeah. So, mm, um, one of the frustrating things with her is that she holds in going to the bathroom. And I guess now that that other kind of issue is much better, the bathroom one is kind of in the forefront.
Okay.
Because what happens is
Are
that
you talking about pee and poo or
yeah, both.
okay.
Like it's so obvious that she has to go because she's holding her, her pulling her pants up
Uh-huh.
and then holding herself and prancing it around. And I've tried so many things, fun games with it, not saying anything, saying something.
Mhm.
And it just seems that she just doesn't want to go until she's about to pee her pants. But it really changes her mood.
Yeah.
So she gets really like she'll start poking her sister or start getting really saucy and spicy with me and just being, she can say some things that are mean or become more demanding, like just all things that are coming out because she's holding it
'Cause she's
in.
uncomfortable, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this may be a totally obvious question, but does she ever tell you why she doesn't wanna go? Like, if you
I
ask her
asked her,
later?
like, I asked her a long time ago. And at that point, it was because she didn't want to miss out on fun. And I think
Mhm,
we were watching a movie. And I
mhm.
said, we can pause it. So often, if they are watching TV and I see her, I'll just, instead of saying, I can see you to the bathroom, I'll just say, hey, Sid.
Just start with if I see they're watching a movie.
Okay. If I see they're watching a movie and that she has to go to the bathroom, I'll say, little S, we can pause the show for you and you can use the bathroom.
And will she at that point?
Sometimes
Yeah.
it really depends. I think it's kind of all over the place.
So I would have another conversation with her, and I would just
Okay.
say I would have an "I've noticed" conversation. I've noticed that sometimes it looks like, and so you don't wanna pin her in, right? You don't wanna, like, say, "I know everything." Like, so you wanna, like,
Mhm.
be using very sort of general, vague language of, like, "I've
Okay.
noticed that sometimes it looks like you have to pee, and it seems like
Mm.
you really are uncomfortable, and you also don't wanna go to the bathroom. What's up with that?"
Yeah. What's
So
up?
that's from Ross Greene, who's the explosive child. He talks about collaborative, proactive solutions, and
Mhm.
so he really has this, like, I forget all of the steps, but it's basically like interviewing. Like, "I've noticed this," and, very non-judgmental language and without seeming like you have all the answers. "I've noticed this. What's up with that?"
Right. And
And
then what do you do with a kid who doesn't want to talk about anything like that? That was actually another point that I wanted to talk to you because she's so resistant to
mhm,
talking about anything that may have happened that maybe was, she hit her sister or something.
yeah.
And I'm not shaming her because she's a high shame response. She knows that she did something wrong, but just talking about anything. It can also be on the flip side, something positive, like, oh, I saw you, you know, she handed out cards at the birthday party to some elderly people. And I said to her after, like, that was so sweet. Did you see how much you made their days? I don't want to talk about it. I
Mhm.
told you I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, so she doesn't like being the center of attention.
Right.
Yeah, I would just say, "Okay." In that instance, like, she received what you were giving,
Okay.
and I guess I wouldn't stress about that. I wonder, like you said, that was sweet. I wonder if you had dropped that part and just said, "I saw how happy all those people were when you gave them the cards," and just purely did the noticing without the judgment. I know it's positive judgment, but it's still
Yeah.
judgment. I wonder if she would
Interesting.
respond differently, like it's something to try, just purely pointing out the results if you wanna give her a compliment
Right.
without a comment about who she is.
Yeah, I see that.
I mean, maybe,
And
maybe not, but
and kind of saying it without the expectation that she's going to respond,
yeah, yeah.
I get.
And also some kids they don't like compliments or praise because it makes them feel pressure that they're gonna have to do it again.
Hmm.
Like, it feels like almost feels like manipulation,
Okay.
even if that's not how we mean it to be. So if you just focus on noticing
Okay.
and not like a judgment.
Okay.
So, but going back to so 2 things you mentioned that she also doesn't wanna revisit, when she's done something like hit her sister.
Yeah.
I would ask yourself if you really actually do need to revisit that. Probably you don't. I mean, sensitive kids are not only very easily shame triggered, but they also have much they don't need much in the way of discipline.
Yeah.
Even discipline in the real root of the word of teaching, because they already know they've did something wrong and they already, what if you do feel like you need to revisit that kind of stuff, what I would say was like, "Oh, that was really tough yesterday with your sister, huh? When you 2 were having the argument about blah, blah, blah. That was really hard." And just not say, like, when you hit her or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then maybe you could say something like, "Do you have any ideas for how I might help you when you're feeling that way?"
So her response to that would be, as soon as if I said, wow, that was really hard yesterday, she'd say, I'm not listening. And she'd cover her ears. I'm not listening. I'm
Okay,
not talking to you about this.
but she already did hear you.
Yeah. She heard,
Yeah.
yes.
So then I would just back off. And
Okay.
then maybe later say, "And by the way, if there's anything I can do to help you when you're
Yes.
having a hard time, I wanna support you."
Yes.
And then she might say, "I'm not listening again," but then you've already said it.
Right. Right. Okay. So you're like saying little snippets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like these-
Like little bird dives, like
Right.
jump into the water to get the fish out
Yes.
and then back up.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I can see that working because she would hear those 10 seconds worse.
Yeah. Does she read?
Yeah.
So you could write her notes too.
That's a great idea. I've never thought of that.
Mhm. You could write her a note, and, like, leave it on her pillow or something,
Yeah.
and see what happens with that. Um, so, th yeah, basically, and we always want to what I'm doing there when I say that was you were really having a hard time, huh, is leading with empathy, leading
Mhm.
with, like, assuming the best possible intent and assuming that, she was trying hard to do the right thing and to be, quote, "good."
Right.
So we always wanna lead with that whenever we have to talk to our kid about something that's hard, that a mistake they've made or something like that, and that's
Right.
especially true for sensitive kids.
Okay.
So, but going back to the pee thing, do you think she really wouldn't wanna talk about that? Like, that doesn't seem like thing she did wrong or anything.
Yeah. So I can certainly try.
Yeah,
And
try and tell us what happens when we do the check-in, because
yes.
I've noticed what's up with that is pretty, like, open and non-judgmental.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this is a slightly different, angle, but some kids, like, from talking to my friend Greg Santucci, who's just wonderful occupational therapist, he's gonna be also on the podcast if he hasn't already by the time I don't know the order of
Yeah.
these yet, but he talks about so that's interoception, which is one of the hidden senses, which is, like, what's going on inside your body, whether you're
Yes.
hungry. Some little kids will be, like, starving and getting hangry, but they'll be like, "I'm not hungry," but they're really hungry, or
Right.
they have to pee, but they don't recognize the feeling, and this is not my area of expertise, but you might look up on the internet, like, occupational therapy strategies for teaching interoception and see if there's any, like, games or bringing awareness. Like, I know Greg has talked about, like, touching your body and saying, like, "When I have to pee, I feel a fullness here."
Right.
Like, it sounds so obvious to us, like, well, clearly she has to pee, but maybe
Yes.
there actually is, like, a gap in her connecting the feeling in her body with what she needs to do.
So do you know if those kids, do they have accident?
I mean, I'm just thinking back to it's always so hard for me to tease out, is this strong-willed or is this like a sensory thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But she
I was
doesn't really
actually
have
at like
accidents, does she?
she doesn't.
Yeah.
No, like sorry, I shouldn't say she doesn't. She does, because if she starts laughing, but she's been holding it and
Okay. Then she
dancing
loses.
around.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just that she doesn't want to go. But I could be wrong. And I was actually in the middle of I listened to part of Greg's podcast right before jumping on here, and it was really good. So I'll go back to listening to that after this.
Okay. Oh, the
Sorry,
summit.
not his
The
podcast,
summit
your
interview.
summit. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. He's so great. So another thing that I was thinking of, in peaceful parenting, we generally don't recommend using rewards. However, in something that's like time limited and you're trying to establish a new habit, maybe you could have some sort of like, everybody tries every 2 hours and gets like a gummy bear or something. I don't know.
Right.
Like if you want to try to like incentivize it a little bit of getting her to
Yes.
go more frequently, because you can also tell her it's not good for your body, because it can give you like, it can make your, like maybe look at some anatomy pictures and look at the bladder and just say like, if you're holding it all the time, your bladder walls can get really thick. And it's like, I don't know all the details, but I know that that's something that you could talk to her about.
Yes. We've definitely talked to her about that. And I think I can't remember if we tried the timing or not, but I try to have a hard rule that before we leave the house, you have to go to the bathroom. And my big ass, no problem.
Yeah.
Little ass, I don't have to go.
Yeah.
And then inevitably we're in the car, or she'll just hold it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes she doesn't have to go, but I'm like, just try. Like, I wish she would just try.
When I was a kid, my mom used to say, this sounds really weird now that I'm about to say it out loud, but she used to say, let's see how yellow we can make the water.
Oh,
and we would all go, yellow water.
Whatever works. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I also think like, sometimes the strong-willed kids, like they just don't, it's another being bossed around thing.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I say it's really hard to tease out, like, is it a sensory thing? Is it a strong-willed thing? Is it FOMO? So that's why I would love for you to try talking to her and come back and let us know what she says.
Right. And sometimes I'll say, if she's being really strong-willed about it, I'll be like, oh my goodness, I have to go. I'm going to beat you. And then all of a sudden she's in there like,
Well, that's great.
Yeah. But
there's somebody in my membership talked about the sneaky pee. Are you sure there's not a sneaky pee? And I think I don't know, there might be a sneaky pee. Maybe you should check in the bathroom. See if there's a sneaky pee.
I'm going to write that down. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap that up for today, because I think that's a lot of stuff to work on and check back. And we'll check back with you in a couple of weeks and see how things have been. But I'm so glad that the last session was so helpful in terms of turning your mornings around at least a little bit.
Yeah. Just that self-awareness and, being more present with my own feelings. It's definitely helped.
Yeah.
Things more peaceful and happy and fun.
That's the secret that everybody discovers, right, in coaching, is like, this is more about me than it is about my kid.
It totally is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, good to see you again, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, Jess, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much.
Yes, we talked about 3 weeks ago yesterday. Welcome back. How have things been since we last talked?
Thank you. Yeah. So I feel like some things have gotten a lot better and some things haven't worked so much. So, for example, with her having to go to the bathroom, I've tried, dropping little tidbits like, hey, I noticed, being a detective was one of the first things that you had mentioned, like really not accusatory. Like, I see you have to go to the bathroom. More like, hey, I've kind of noticed that maybe, and she just shuts me down. Was what I'm talking about.
Okay. You were worried that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. So then I would just kind of drop little tidbits. Hey, I noticed you're holding yourself, and right away she shut me off. But I remember you saying the information is going in, right? Triggered me. The only thing that works, I've realized, is making it into a race.
Great.
So that's worked. And if I really notice her, I'll just say, oh, I got to go pee. I'm going to beat you. And all of a sudden she's sitting on the toilet.
Well, good for you. I mean, finding something that works is great.
but I guess like in my head, I'm going, why? Why does that work? What does that mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit. Have you ever heard of demand avoidance?
Yes.
I mean, that's sort of what it makes me think of a little bit. I mean, I am not diagnosing her. I'm not saying
Yeah.
like it's that she has PDA or anything like that. But it reminds me a little bit of that she's got to feel in control of herself, and that if anyone is telling her to go to the bathroom, it like it's that strong-willed thing, right? Of like, you can't make me. But if it is a challenge and a race, she can override that, and like the desire to win overrides her desire to not be told what to do, is what it seems
Yeah.
like to me.
Yeah. That
Just a
makes sense.
simple, like, which thing takes priority in her brain. Wanting to be first and win takes priority over somebody pointing out, her not liking somebody pointing out that she has to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I would just
So
keep doing that, and
yeah, okay.
hopefully it's just going to click at some point. I forget, does she go at school? I don't even know if I've asked you that.
She will go at school. I'm guessing it's probably a similar thing where she'll go on her own here. If we don't ask her, don't play a race, she'll go eventually, but it has to become dire
Right.
for her to do
Yeah.
it, where she's pulling up her pants at the front and back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And prancing around. So I'm guessing it's probably the same at school.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is one of those things where you found something that works, and, honestly, I can't think of anything else that you could do to try to make that different. Hopefully she's just this is one of those things that time will tell, and hopefully she'll just grow out of it.
Yes.
Has she been doing it ever since she was toilet trained?
She's been doing it for a long time. I don't know necessarily that it started right when she was toilet trained. She was a really easygoing
Yeah.
baby and like sleeper, I'd say, until she was like, this stuff probably started happening when she was 3.
Right. I mean, maybe something's just going to shift. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But she's going with the race thing and
Yes.
going at school. And so maybe I would just park that in the parking lot of, put it on the shelf. Don't worry about it for right now.
Okay. I tried the whole sneaky pee that you had told me about when we were about to head out for a full day of activities. And I like the girls to go to the bathroom, that we don't have to stop on the way. And as, of course, said, I don't have to go. And I said, oh, are you sure there's not a sneaky pee in there? And both of my girls, well, what's a sneaky pee? I said, a sneaky pee is something where you don't think you have to go, but then you actually go sit in the toilet and something comes out. Well, my older one ran to the toilet and she went. Little S was like, no, I'm not buying it.
She sounds really smart.
So she is.
Well, I think, I think just, I would occasionally still talk about the I noticed thing, and just do the race, and if you can leave her alone to just go when she needs to go. I think just, it doesn't sound like something that you need to worry about to me.
Yeah. Just like I said, it just gets annoying when she's holding it so much that it starts to interfere with an activity that we're doing. So we play a lot of card games like Uno and stuff, and she'll have to go, and it interrupts the whole game because she gets up and she's prancing around, or she'll get kind of where she starts to get almost like mean with her comments. So that part is it's just frustrating.
Yeah.
Go pee so we can have fun again.
Yeah, it does sound very annoying.
I just have to pretend I have to go and make it into a race.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things where like kids only really have control over 3 things: toileting, sleep, and eating. Those are the 3 things you cannot make anybody do.
Yeah.
Or you shouldn't even try to make people do. Like, those are the only 3 things they really have control over. And I mean, I guess you could try like a little bit of a reward thing too, if it's really bugging you.
Yeah.
Can't remember if we talked about that last time, but just even
we
like a little
that,
coupon system or something.
And I think that would work for her. So I don't know why I I don't know why I haven't tried it. I did try it. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I tried it probably a year and a half ago with like M&Ms or something. And then for some reason I got away from it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's something, obviously rewards are not in our regular toolbox of peaceful parenting, but for something like this, and when it's limited to something very specific and it's also time limited, probably if you gave her an M&M to go to the bathroom, you probably won't still be doing that in a couple of years. And I don't know, maybe,
chocolate. Yeah. She would totally ride that wave until she like a
like
teenager.
4 or 5 M&Ms a day. Who cares?
Yeah.
This is one of those things where you have to decide. You get to decide, like, how, is that worth it to me? What are the, pros and cons? And, there's no peaceful parenting police.
Right. So it's interesting you say that because I had a little bit of guilt about something else where I feel like I'm rewarding her for something. And we had talked a little bit at our first coaching session, which was before the podcast, about our sleeping arrangements and how I was getting tired because she was falling asleep in our bed. And so we had a family meeting, our first family meeting on Saturday, and we just kind of like went over because it felt like things were getting a little bit harder than they should be in our house. And we talked about the sleeping arrangements and how, now that they're getting a bit older, it's lighter out, they really want to play later. And so in order to do that, we're going to have to cut back on the time that mommy and daddy lay with them in bed, because we were both laying in bed with them until they fell asleep. Mm-hmm. So every night we were in there laying with one of them, and then every other night we would switch kids, right? And my husband and I just got to a point where we were feeling a bit irritated at us, because it would be like 8:30 and we're exhausted because we've played with them, we've worked all day, and now we have to, do all the things to get ready for the next day. So they were actually very much on board. Little S at first said, nope, I'm not sleeping in my bed. At first, S said no, she wouldn't sleep in her bed. And then I just talked about how we would spend some time making her room feel a little more cozy, and like, what can we do to help it feel cozier and nice for you? And later that day, she agreed that she was going to do it. Later that day, she became interested in getting a Polaroid camera. It'd been something she'd been talking about for a while. And so eventually I said, you know what? If you go to bed in your bed, mommy will give you $1 for every night that you do that. And I feel a bit guilty doing that because I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm bribing her. But at the same time, I really needed her to go in her bed. And it's worked.
Listen, as I said, there is no peaceful parenting police. So sometimes kids do need extrinsic motivation when they don't have intrinsic motivation. She had no intrinsic motivation to change her sleeping habits. She quite liked, in fact, the sleeping arrangement that you had before.
Right.
And so sometimes I think a temporary, I think if you could somehow make it clear to her that once she has enough money for the Polaroid camera, she's going to continue to sleep in her room or whatever the new arrangement is, and that you're going to stop paying her at some point. You're not going to pay her for the rest of her life to sleep on her own. But I think I would make it clear this is a bridge, right? This is to help you get used to it. And sometimes when we're trying to get used to a new thing, a little outside reward to help us, use our willpower and the new skills that we're developing can be really helpful. Like when my daughter was having trouble sleeping alone, we had this point system where if she could fall asleep on her own, she got 1 point. And if she woke up in the night and didn't come and get me, she got 2 points. And then she would get a treat when she got 5 points. Okay. And we didn't do that forever. We just did it until she was not having trouble falling asleep on her own anymore. So I think, the danger comes in is when you start to use rewards and bribes for everything that you want your kids to do that they don't want to do. And the secondary danger is that what do you do when they say, well, I don't want, what if she says, I don't want $1 tonight. I just want you to sleep with me. So far it's working. You don't need to worry about that unless that happens. But, I don't think there's anything wrong with introducing some extrinsic motivation temporarily to help her get over the
Yeah.
hump of this change.
Yes. Okay. Hugh. And it's interesting. The first night she did it, she was having a really hard time getting comfortable, and she got up. I hate my bed. It's not comfortable. I hate these covers. And I was really patient with her and just said, like, okay, you know what, honey, maybe tonight's not the night to try this. If you like, I gave her the control. I'm like, if you want to sleep in my bed tonight, let's do that. I'd just like you to get some sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And so she went to my bed, and that's when I said it. I said, honey, if tonight's not the night, that's okay. We can try again tomorrow. And it's like a light bulb went off in her head, and she got up and went to her bed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have told her, like, if at any point in the night you're scared and you need me, I will never. It's just the way I feel, that I won't turn them away from coming in the middle of the night. It's also because I want my sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember as a kid needing to go sleep with my parents or my mom as well. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to be that space for them if they need me in the middle of the night.
That makes sense.
And she's actually thriving in this.
That's awesome.
I know it's new and I know things could change tomorrow, but it's really.
Well, so this is what you want to do too, is you want to build on the success and just like, remember how you didn't used to want to do this and now you're doing it. And that's so amazing. Right.
Yeah.
So building on that success and helping to reinforce that in her brain that she's doing it. Right. And she didn't used to be able to do it, and she can do hard things.
Yeah. I like that. And I kind of go up to her and whisper them, because she doesn't, she's the kid that doesn't want attention, whether it's positive or negative. So I'm kind of teetering on, I want to make a big deal about it, but then she'll be like, be quiet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any suggestions for that? Like,
I think there are lots of kids who don't like that, to be in the spotlight. So don't make a big deal about it, but you can just notice it without making a big deal about it.
Okay.
I think partly they feel like, I don't know, it feels a little manipulative sometimes to somebody when you make a big deal about something. Can feel a little manipulative.
Yes. And then I read somewhere, again, maybe on your podcast or in your group, that by acknowledging it and celebrating it, it makes, is it sensitive kids feel like they're going to have to keep doing it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they can't have like a fault, like a
expectation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that's really, I can understand that. I can relate to that.
Totally. All right. Well, let's just have, I know before we started recording, you said that things had still felt a little bit rough, and that you'd had little S had some Monday morning meltdowns where you felt like it was really hard to remember the tools that we talked about you using. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? And I just want to assure you that it's normal to keep, when you have an intense kid and you also yourself are very sensitive, it's totally normal. Even when you have knowledge and tools, it's totally normal to still have a hard time sometimes. It's not like riding a bike where you're like, okay, now I know how to ride a bike and I'm never gonna have balance problems or fall off my bike again. Like, it's not like that.
Yeah. No, it definitely isn't. Like, life it's never easy. Like for a whole day, it's generally not easy. I find, like, we all went to Florida, and I find my eldest is more of like, we don't have the high highs with her and the low lows. Mm-hmm. Whereas little S, it's like a roller coaster ride. She is absolutely hilarious and so kind and funny, and makes our lives like just the most joyous at times. And then the lows are really challenging. So, like, we're still having challenges with the clothing. And yes, Monday mornings are really challenging. I'm guessing because, she wants to be home with mom and dad and Sissy. And so this Monday, I, had to carry her to the bus again, without her boots, without her jacket.
But you did it. You made it.
We made it. And, I looked at her on the bus. She was crying. But she came home that day and she was in such a great mood. And she was so helpful. It almost was like her way of I don't know, maybe apologizing, even though
Sounds
she was
like
just
it.
having a hard time. But I think she was trying to like show us that she felt bad that the morning had
Maybe,
gone
yeah.
kind of sideways.
Yeah, sounds like it.
She was like, "No, sissy, I got your backpack. I'll take everything down to the basement where our boots and hats and mitts go." And she was just so helpful.
That's
It was
great.
really cute.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I still feel like I have to kind of be on my tiptoes and being prepared for her
Mhm.
and being a little more nimble than I do with my other one. Other daughter's a lot more easygoing. And we're still having the clothing issues. We had two big meltdowns this weekend because a specific pair of pants one time was in the washing machine, and then another on Sunday, her shirt was in the washing machine. And what I'll say about that is the meltdown happened, but the way that we handled it felt better. Like
Good.
I held more space for her to have that meltdown without getting triggered. And we sat and watched the shirt going around, getting wet, and she was crying and screaming. And then she got over it and put on a
Good.
new shirt.
Good. Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, and maybe you could work on expanding the repertoire of taking her shopping and seeing if you can find some, I don't know if you can get the same thing, more of the same that she likes, or if it's that they get worn out to a certain degree, maybe it's the not newness, and maybe buying some used stuff. I know we talked about
Yeah.
going Goodwill shopping last time for a different reason, but maybe you could find some used, very soft old t-shirts or and pants that might be good for her.
So
And
we were at the Salvation Army on Saturday, and I told her, you know what? Maybe we can find a couple shirts or pants that you like.
Mhm.
And I held up a couple shirts and she had no interest. She had her money that she wanted to buy for a toy. And she's just so focused on this one shirt and this one pair of pants. And the thing I find weird is there's no rhyme or reason to it. It could be that these ones will get a hole, and all of a sudden she'll go back to a pair of pants she hated 2 weeks ago. And those
well,
become
I
the
mean,
pants
maybe just
to wear.
try to wash those things at night and let her wear them every day until they wear out,
That's
you
what we
know?
do.
Yeah.
We're just leaning into it and doing that. What happened this weekend is I think she wanted to wear them to bed or something happened, and we were like, these have to be washed now.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's no choice. Like they're
Mhm.
dirty. You'll get a rash if you wear them again. Kind of
Yeah.
thing, right?
Okay. Sounds like you're walking a good line between flexible and when you absolutely have to, just holding space for her, as you said.
Yeah, we're trying for sure.
Good. Well, I think overall, even though before we recorded you were like, I think it actually sounds like you are getting into a better space.
Yeah, it's it's like this is definitely your coaching has definitely helped me and my perspective of her. And when I have the resources to react the way I want to,
Mhm.
it certainly helps. But
The good
some
news
days,
is you don't have to be perfect. There are going to be low days and there are going to be
yeah,
bad days. There are going to be days where you get, overwhelmed by all of the emotion and all of the intensity. And also, you know what? Little S is only 6 and her brain is going to mature. She's going to smooth out. Like I've seen this so many times with kids. It's not that she's going to lose her intensity, but she's going to gain perspective and gain brain development and maturity and gain more self-regulation as she gets older,
yes,
right?
yes,
So it doesn't mean that there's always going to be these big dramatic moments in your house.
yeah.
At least maybe not until she's about, 12 or 14 and then he'll go through like,
Yeah, I'm sure life with her will always be interesting. I think she is just that like strong-willed kid, and I'm that strong-willed adult who
yeah,
was a strong-willed kid.
and the only thing you can control is your own reaction and your own story that you tell yourself about the situation.
Yeah. It's so hard. What I find the hardest is that it's the day in, day out struggle of life with her that
Mhm.
can wear you down. Like sometimes my husband and I will just say, gosh, we just her to go brush her teeth when she's asked. Maybe for one day. Can you go brush your teeth when you're asked? It would be so nice. And it's just like it really is a challenge here every
Yeah.
day. And yeah, on the days where like we're tired or work has been difficult, or maybe our other daughter, like I told you before, she had some challenges this week. And you're just pulled in so many directions.
Well, and that's honestly, to do this kind of parenting, you do have to take extra good care of yourself.
Yeah.
'Cause it does require more resources. Although if you weren't doing this kind of parenting, it would probably be just as exhausting, but just in a different direction because you'd be just like, fighting and meltdowns all the time on both of your sides.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. It keeps us on our toes.
yeah. Well, thanks, Jess, for sharing this with me and with our listeners, because I know lots of people are going to relate to your challenges and be inspired by the things that you've been doing. It's been great to watch.
Yeah. I so appreciate your expertise and being able to talk unfiltered with you.
Aw, I'm glad
You've really helped me and therefore hopefully helped my kids.
Yeah. Well, please
Yeah.
keep in touch.
We will for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.